So I changed my name in 7th grade. Reading and writing, I got a B. This is 400 pages, and you know what? It's not that good. 2002, 2003, when I was in 7th grade, is a pretty iconic film year. Justin and Brittany had just broken up, and I predicted an ending of a book that I've already read and loved and forgot, apparently. If you want to get an insight into early 2000s fashion, this is it. Hi friends, today is another childhood favorites video. There's no one around, don't worry, it's just empty, but I wanted to take you here because this is an important part of my 7th grade life. To start, we don't like 7th grade Kayla, although 7th grade Kayla, her name wasn't even Kayla, so let's talk about that. Okay, this is my Kiwanis Music Festival certificate. This is the one from 6th grade that says Kayla. This is the one from 7th grade that says Rose. So I changed my name in 7th grade with all of like my school paperwork. The reason I wanted to show you here, I wanted to give you a little tour of downtown Kelowna because I don't know, I just felt like it. This is a part of my 7th grade. This is the place where I performed poetry to get that certificate. Basically in 7th grade I decided I was gonna be famous. I was acting in plays, I was performing poetry, I had a poem published. Oh, I did a video for the school as like a tour for the younger kids who were just entering the elementary school. I just wanted to reinvent myself. I decided I was done. I was gonna be someone else. I was gonna be Rose, which is my middle name. Screw the girls who, you know, wrote Kayla's fat carved into the bathroom stalls. Screw the girls who walked around like this and were like, I have a little green lemming friend. If you can't see him, you're not part of our friendship group. Screw the girls who wouldn't be my friend because I went over to their house and I gave them the middle finger. Wait, that was my fault. Yeah, I was not a fun person to be around in 7th grade. Not a good friend, not a good person. We like to pretend she didn't ever happen. You can see here my library cards. This is the one I showed you in 4th grade. This was my one in 7th grade. So that's fun for me. And then behind me is Prospera Place. I have a ticket back from when it was called Skyreach Place. I'm pretty sure this is actually the year that they changed their name in 2002. Here's one that says Prospera. And then this place was actually built in 2002, so that's kind of cool. Next spot on the tour is the Kelowna Community Theater. Okay, this is my ticket from the Biff Naked concert from 2003 where I went with my best friend who's also on my Kiwanis thing. I think it was my first concert ever without my parents. Like we just got dropped off and got to go. I don't know if I explained what the Kiwanis Music Festival is. It's like people singing, playing instruments, doing dramatic reenactments, reading poetry. I read a poem, we'll talk about it. I got a merit one year, I got 3rd place one year, and I got 3rd place again. So this was basically me and my best friend I told you about, Dee. Her and I had to like practice our performance. There was like this certain, I guess, like teacher who helped the Kiwanis students, and she taught us like how to project our voices and like how to stand, because when we were doing duos or duets or whatever, we had to stand the same way, dress the same way. And I actually have the notes that were given to me for one of the performances. This ties into the things that I'm gonna read this week. Basically 7th grade me was into poetry and horror, but then I got into silly middle grade girly books too. Barbie, Sweet Valley High, Flowers in the Attic, the Making Out series. I'm gonna start reading today Ariel by Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath was one of my favorite poets. I hadn't read any of her novels until high school, but poetry I was all over. I think I performed one of her poems at Kiwanis, or I wanted to perform one of her poems and then they asked me to do something else. I know I performed Elizabeth Bishop's One Art though, because to this day it's my favorite poem. It's the one that goes, "The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost. Their loss is no disaster." This one though, I apparently read My Shadow by, it says Stevenson, I don't remember his name. I think it's Robert Louis Stevenson. I'll give you a little taste. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me, from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. So my notes for this were, thank you, Kayla. Lovely vocal colors. Oh God. Good phrasing and lots of vocal vocation? Be sure to something. Drag the voice on periods. My bed. Stress bed, not my. Okay. Try to lift the pitch at the beginning of verse 2. Good work. She gave me an 86%. And I got 3rd place with that. So I'm not really sure what I thought changing my name was going to accomplish, but I definitely didn't accomplish it because everyone just made fun of me more, and I had to change it back like 6 months later. So overall, 7th grade was not the best time, although it was like the last year of elementary school, so there were certain perks to being a 7th grader. We called it the 4 B's of 7th grade: bus loop, benches, back seat, and band. So basically I showed you in the clip of my school that there's like a big bus loop in the front, and essentially only the 7th graders were allowed to be in that bus loop. Every other grade you had to be in the back of the school, like on the fields. And then benches were like in the auditorium. I don't know why I just called it the auditorium. There were 2 rows of benches at the back of the gym, so anytime there was an assembly or something, the 7th graders got to sit on the benches. And the back seat was on the bus, so like if you took the bus home, which I did, you got to sit in the back seat if you were a 7th grader. Although a lot of times after school I was taking the city bus to the SPCA because this is the year I started volunteering. I would clean like hamster and rabbit cages every day, and sometimes there were puppies and we got to help like train them, which was fun. And then band. I actually, I hate that this is happening, but I lost my pack of pictures. They've been missing for like 4 months since the last time I did this video. I can go back in my 3rd grade video and see me holding up the pack of photos. I've been looking for it for 4 months. I have started filming this. I've like planned, you know, out when I was gonna make time each month for the childhood favorites, and I kept pushing it off because I kept needing to find these photos. I still have not found them, and I've looked everywhere 3 times, so I really don't know. I do have a pack of photos that like weren't good enough to be in that pack, so like I organized all of my high school photos in that envelope, so I better find it for future videos. And then the rejects I just have left over in this skinny little one. So I'll show you the photos that I never actually wanted to show you because this is all I have from 7th grade. This is me at a Girl Guide camp on a horse. It's the least flattering thing I've ever seen of myself. Was not stoked about that picture. These might actually be 8th grade, but like I have literally nothing else to show you. So here's me in an inner tube. We were actually building a raft. This was again at Girl Guide camp. That's all I have for you. I have one photo from 7th grade that I never wanted to show you because it's horrifying, but I wanted to show you because it's horrifying, but I don't have it, and it sucks. So overall, 7th grade wasn't a great time. I didn't have friends, like I wasn't a great person, people weren't great to me, but all of like the extracurricular activities that I did for myself were fun. Like I was still in Girl Guides. I was writing for the school newspaper. I was in charge of the kids page. So like I was making like the crosswords and the word searches. I remember there was like a Q&A in the newspaper. So some people would like submit questions. There was a box somewhere in the school where people could submit questions. And then I would like write an answer. It was like an Ask Abby. And I remember none of the questions were good, so I like made fake questions. Oh God, I would pay to see a newspaper from back then. Like I can't believe I never held on to one. But then that video we made for the school was super cool. There was like 4 of us, and I remember like I had to wear the same shirt to school like every day for a week because they would film like in between classes. We would like walk down the hallway, someone would be filming us like pointing out different parts of the school and introducing like the younger kids to who were coming to this school. And I remember getting in big trouble one day because I didn't bring my shirt, and I had to wear a different shirt, and I had to like wear it inside out, and they were so mad at me because they had to like crop in really close to my face for that clip because it, like, the continuity, I messed it all up. I was also in choir. I joined choir in 7th grade. And I was by far the worst singer in the entire group. But like, I had convinced myself that I could sing. And I remember this one trip we went on to these cabins. I don't even remember where it was, but like every cabin had 4 girls in it. Nobody wanted to be in my cabin, so I got thrown in like a leftover cabin with 3 girls in it who hated me. And I remember they convinced me to let them cut my hair. And to me, that was like a moment that they were like letting me into their friendship group.
Don't panic, you look great.
What I actually learned was that like they thought I was disgusting and greasy and wanted to chop off my hair. I'm gonna read this and have some great memories of reading poetry as a 7th grader who took herself way too seriously. The fact that 12-year-old me was reading this by itself, but trying to read this at a poetry reading competition doesn't sit right with me. I think there are only like 2 poems in here to begin with that I wouldn't even say are appropriate, but that maybe I could get away with reading in a crowd of 12-year-olds. Oh God. Though I know that the edition that I would have read at this time would have been different from this, because this is like the, what is it, like 2004 when the collection got fixed, basically. So when I read the other edition, there was like 10 more poems that are in here. And I don't know if they would be like more intense than these, but wow. I'm just like questioning everything. Like that I was reading this at this age. I know for a fact I was reading this at this age. Reading like the N-word and about the Ku Klux Klan and about Nazis, and every poem's about abortion and God and Christ, placentas, scalping Indians. Lots and lots of references that are just, I don't know, leaving me with a lot to think about. It's making me just really bummed out. So that was an interesting place to start. I mean, I know Sylvia Plath, for some reason, still caught off guard with the intensity of this. Hello, we're camping this weekend. I'm not gonna vlog much or like talk much, but here's a couple clips. And I'm currently reading The Unicorn Club. All right, hello. It was just Liam's birthday, so we went camping. I was planning on vlogging the entire time, but I decided that I should put away screens for the entire weekend, which was a very nice idea. So Liam's just gonna hang out with us and build his Tinker crate. Maybe by the time we're done chatting, he'll be down his catapult and he can show us. But I didn't read that much this weekend anyway. It was just one book. The Unicorn Club, book number 1, called Save the Unicorns, which is the only one I ever read from the series. That's pretty much a trend with my childhood reading, is like we didn't have the internet, so we couldn't just like find books online. You just had to show up at the used bookstore and hope that somebody would donate a future book in the series if you wanted to read it. This time around, I didn't keep my old book, The Unicorn Club, so I embarrassingly spent $20 ordering this from, I think it was Thrift Books. This has a lot of nostalgia for me. Mandy, right here, was my everything. The whole Unicorn Club, basically, as Mandy describes it, it's the most popular, pretty, and liked girls in school, and they all just hang out and call themselves the Unicorn Club. And they all make a point every day to wear something purple. That is like the color of the Unicorn Club. So Mandy here is in all purple. Look at her purple jeans, her purple plaid. I wanted to be Mandy. And we've got a bunch of other white girls and one black girl, which is the trend in, I think, every most like 90s tween book series. We've got Nichelle, we've got Jessie from the Babysitters Club. In the Making Out series, we have Aisha. And in the Unicorn Club, we have Maria. Although, technically, she is described as having dark eyes and skin the color of milky coffee. That's the best description that we were getting in the 90s and early 2000s of women of color in books. Milky coffee? Milky coffee. You could put any amount of milk in your coffee. So like, what does that mean? Also, no one else got their skin color described in this book except her. She wasn't even so much a character in here, like she barely got any description at all. So I actually, upon finishing this, ordered the second book, which is all about her. I can't remember what it's called, but I'll pop up the cover right here, because I'd never even realized that other books in the series were from different perspectives. So that's super cool. But if you know like the Sweet Valley High series, that was a little bit before my time. It's still the twins, but it's just earlier in life. In the all-encompassing series of the Sweet Valley stuff, I think there are hundreds of books. We had them as children, as tweens, as teens, college age, university. Like, we followed them for so long, and other people. So Mandy was our main character in here, but we also had Leela or Lila. And the focus of this book is they're choosing the club president, and two of the girls are fighting who should be the next president of the club. And in order to do that, they play a bunch of pranks, like painting the lockers purple, and they get in trouble and they have to volunteer at this childcare place. It was very Babysitter Club vibes, which now it makes sense why I liked it so much. There was some very interesting focus on foster care in here that I wasn't expecting, because they're volunteering to take care of these kids just at a daycare. And then there's this one girl they get really attached to, and then one day the mom comes in and she's like, I can't find a job, and if I can't find a job soon, my kid's gonna have to go to foster care. And then that happens. And then the girls like make this effort to find her a job and get them back together. Everyone in this book makes bad decisions, does dumb things, they fight, they have all of this stuff going on, but Mandy is like the voice of reason throughout the entire book, and she's just trying to do the right thing and make good choices. And I'm gonna give you spoilers because I forgot that this happened, but Mandy gets to become the president at the end, which I was so surprised by. As the book was wrapping up, I was pretty sure they were gonna choose the two girls to just be like co-presidents. Like, that's the memory that I had. And as I was reading, I was like, oh my god, Mandy would make such a good president. That's how the book should have gone, and the book did go that way. And I predicted an ending of a book that I've already read and loved and forgot, apparently. Another interesting point that I forgot is Mandy, the year before, had cancer and apparently lost all of her hair, which is confusing because in the book it doesn't talk about like what her hair currently looks like, but on the cover it's long and doesn't look like she has recently lost her hair, but specifically comments on the fact that she used to wear wigs but doesn't wear them anymore. And there's this whole thing where they're like stealing teachers' toupee as one of the pranks, and she gets upset with her friends because, like, did they forget that just last year she was wearing a wig and how upsetting it would have been if someone had stolen that from her. It was really good overall. Some weird things, but like a good message. I felt really good about this book. And because of the Unicorn Club and Mandy, my queen, I painted my entire room purple this year, and it would remain purple for like the rest of my years. Also, this book takes place in 7th grade, which I had no idea when I picked it up. And this happened last time in 4th grade, and I think in 5th grade. I keep non-intentionally reading my favorite books that happen to take place in that same year, and I don't know if like I loved that book because it was taking place in the same grade as me. I guess that makes sense, but it's always such a surprise when I see we finally made it to 7th grade, and I'm like, I read this in 7th grade. Babysitter's Club was still definitely a thing for me in 7th grade. In fact, Jessie became my favorite babysitter in 7th grade. Previous to that, and I think after that, it was Dawn. Dawn's always been my girl, but then I've also always connected with Claudia a lot. But there was something in 7th grade that I was really loving Jessie, and I was picking up all of Jessie's books. And then, embarrassingly, which I planned to never talk about, and I threw away the evidence, but I showed you in previous childhood favorites these laminated books that we would write. And in 7th grade, we wrote one. We got assigned one. And I wrote the longest story in the entire class. And it was this thick story about a ballerina named, I think it was Jasmine. And I was writing, and then we were getting close to the deadline, and I was not finished my story at all. Couldn't think of a way to even like wrap it up. So I literally I plagiarized the Babysitter's Club. I took like the second half of a Jessie book, and we didn't have, again, like the type of internet access or ability to copy. So I flipped open the book and typed on my little computer the entire like second half of the book, and just changed out the name every time I saw Jessie's name to Jasmine or whatever. The teacher never caught me. Actually, this is a great time to grab my report card. I came across this when I was looking through the bin last time, but I specifically did not like look at the grades, but I have it. I don't even remember my teacher's name. Mrs. Lum. Reading and writing, I got a B. I got a B.
I thought you said you were good at it.
I always got A's in high school. I can't believe I got a B. That's so embarrassing. In math, I got an A. In science, I got a B. In social studies, I got a B. In French, I got an A.
Wait. You said A in math.
An A in math.
I thought you hated math.
This is 7th grade. I was good at math. In fact, it's weird that I got a B because I skipped 8th grade math, English, and something else. In PE, I got a B. Not bad. In personal planning, I got a B. I'm shocked. In fine arts, I got an A. A in art, A in music, A in drama. So in music, I played the flute. It was like very cool, like the cool popular girls were the ones who got to play flute. I remember we all went to the gym and we got to test for the instrument. So we had to sit there and we had to listen to things and then write down our answers in this little quiz. And then we got assigned an instrument. And all of like the popular girls all got flutes. And my sheet said flute or clarinet. So I had the choice. So even though I got like the popular girl instrument and I was fun, like this is my year, I fit in, like I could be cool. No, I wasn't cool because I didn't get assigned the flute. I got assigned a choice. I still chose the flute, but I still wasn't cool. And then in drama, I got an A. I was in a play in 7th grade. I think it was Red Riding Hood. My friend played Red Riding Hood. My other friend played Red Riding Hood's best friend. And I got Red Riding Hood's sister. And one of my most embarrassing memories from grade 7 is during the rehearsals, there was this boy who I had a huge crush on who got cast as, I guess, like the woodsman or whatever. And every time he would walk on stage, Red Riding Hood and all of her girlfriends, their instructions were to like swoon after him and go, oh my gosh. And it was like a funny part of the play. And I remember in the middle of rehearsal, I like piped up. When he walks on stage, since I'm also a girl on stage, am I supposed to swoon after him? And our teacher person was like, sure, Kayla, go for it. So I did because I loved him. I'm embarrassing Liam. So that's what I remember from 7th grade. Let's read the notes. Should we read all of them? Yes. I'm just gonna read the last one. June 2003, term 3. Kayla had a very good third term. She can be proud of her accomplishments. Kayla has been willing to help out in the classroom, which is greatly appreciated. Yeah, because I had no friends, so I would stay in at recess and like put the chairs away and wipe down the desks because otherwise I was just sitting outside alone. Her presentation on ancient Greek math was both interesting and well presented. Huh? Kayla volunteered to read aloud on many occasions, and she reads with flair and fluency. Oh! Liam is done with his activity. That was close. I'm gonna keep it light. I'm not ready to dive into anything that's gonna take too much of my brain power, so we're gonna go on to Generation Girl. New York, Here We Come. Book number 1. Much like the Unicorn Club, I only ever read the first one. I've only ever seen the first one. I don't know anything that comes after this, if there's anything else or what it looks like. But this is basically a Barbie book. I definitely liked Barbies too late in life. The same is true with some shows. Like, I was watching The Big Comfy Couch and Barney in like 7th grade. I think it's because I didn't have those things so much when I was younger. So once we like got cable and once I could like buy a couple Barbies, I was like, I'm not too old for it, like let's go. It's weird because I feel like I remember this pretty well. We've got Barbie, who I think is this one, we don't even see her face, and then all of her friends. And I think at the beginning of the book, she goes and moves in with this family that she doesn't know in New York in order to go to film school. Oh, look, we've got a map of New York. I don't remember why I loved this, but I definitely did. It came out originally in 1999. I was probably also playing Barbie video games at this age. I know I was getting into video games. I was really into Lara Croft Tomb Raider and Grand Theft Auto. I think Vice City would have come out at this time. And consistently in my life, like, I wouldn't actually play the games properly. I would just like walk around and like be a normal person. So in Tomb Raider, I wasn't actually like completing the missions. I remember there being this big training, it was just like a gym, and she would just like jump up and down on trampolines and like scurry along walls, and then we would go swim in the pool. In Grand Theft Auto, I like wouldn't do a single mission, and I would never get the cops after me. I would literally just drive around and I would try to stay in my lane, and I would stop at the stop signs, and I would just like be a normal person. And then I would get all the cheat codes. My favorite cheat code was one where you made your car fly. Another favorite game was Tony Hawk. I was all about Tony Hawk. Actually, going back to Vice City, that's where I got a lot of my like musical taste. Was, I don't remember the radio station now, but some of my favorite songs I know because of that game. And then in Tony Hawk, also some of my favorite songs. I also still absolutely loved Mary-Kate and Ashley at this age. I was playing this one game of theirs. All I remember is it took place on a beach. I'm pretty sure you had to clean the beach. This is the type of video games that I was into. I was cleaning the ocean. So that's what I was up to. I don't think I ever had any Barbie video games, which is a real tragedy. I honestly don't have a ton to say about Generation Girl. It's a pretty like basic story. I can kind of get into it for a second while I hit you a very specific portion of my viewership with some nostalgia. Speaking about dolls, Barbie dolls, this. And the thing about these doll makers is every single one was different, and you didn't really know what you were getting into until you loaded it. So there'd be like these sites where you could like find different people making these doll makers. And keep in mind, like, we didn't have Google. Like, you just had to know somebody who knew this site was here, and then you had to wait like half an hour for your dial-up internet to load the entire page. And if you scrolled before it was done, it would mess up the entire thing, and then it would never load. I don't think any of these are really gonna work, but like, they were all different because sometimes you could drag and drop the outfits. And sometimes you had to double click. So like there's a body here and you would have to double click it, and then it would go to a different area. It says make doll here. And then you could usually like dress her up like that. So like, oh fuck. I think this one might work. Yeah, and you would, wow, oh my god. Am I kidding? I'm the pale one. That's literally my skin tone. This is all it was, by the way. Like, you just dress up the doll and then you go on with your life. Obviously, every generation and every age range has a different relationship with technology, and I would never be like an out of touch old person who is like, oh, kids these days, like, don't appreciate technology, or they're always stuck on their phones, or blah 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 blah. But I will say, there is something that I find with the age demographic of people born from like and it's really specific, 1987 to 1994, when we didn't have internet and like specifically social media during our formative years, but when we were like, oh, now I can't take her skirt off, I have to start all over. Oh, this one's the whitest one. She's gray. That's okay. But what I'm saying is, we got internet at an early enough age that, like, I feel like a lot of the really successful YouTubers that you see exist in this very specific age range, because like, we know how to appreciate social media and not let it consume our entire lives. I'm obviously speaking like pretty generally and broadly, but I think a lot of us have a really healthy relationship with social media, and at the same time got it early enough in our lives that we've always been able to be on top of like the most current technology. Put her in some boots. Oh, there was also sometimes an issue where like the clothes would go on in the wrong order, so you'd drag it over and it would like go under the pants and it would ruin your entire doll. This one is definitely my favorite. I wish I could use it. Oh my god, and it's so funny because there are like certain outfits that are very timely and were very on trend. Oh my gosh, if you want to get an insight into early 2000s fashion, besides like looking at celebrity photos, this is it. I love this so much. These fuzzy jackets, oh my gosh. I remember I bought one that looked just like this one. It looks just like the one that Mary-Kate Nash was wearing on the front cover of their magazine. And I bought one like it, and it shed like crazy, and my mom said I looked like Stevie Nicks, and I had no idea who that was. And then of course everyone talks about like the games you got to play in school. I know that we played the one that everyone talks about. What's that game? Like the truck game? No, it was the hiking one. What's that called? Yukon something? Something, yeah. Oh, Yukon Trail. Yukon Trail. So I'll show you what our computers looked like. They were like colorful. Did you have colorful computers?
No, I was a year older than you. I was this generation before colorful computers. Oh,
it's right here. You'd pick somebody. Oh my gosh. I think this must have been the Canadian, because I know people talk about the games that they played in school, and I think they talk about something else, but like, maybe I'm wrong. But Canadians, we had this.
Yeah. It was a really weird game now that I think about it.
Oh yeah, and you can ask people questions. Yeah.
Oh god, I remember that.
Anyway, the Barbie book. Basically Barbie goes to New York. She goes to like an international school. There's these girls that she meets, and one girl, something was stolen from her. Oh my gosh. Speaking about the Yukon Trail, this is me. This is probably more like 8th grade again, but we like had to dress up for this like olden times photo shoot for, again, some Girl Guide thing. I was going to pull out this bookmark because I think I got this around this age. I know I got it from the flea market, which is my favorite place to be. I talked about how my dad always took me and I could get like a 50-cent Archie comic every time we went. And I remember seeing like a magnetic bookmark for the first time, and it just like blew my mind. But essentially what happens with the item that was stolen, and Barbie's trying to like solve the case, is another girl stole it, but actually she was just taking it to like put in the lost and found. That's the entire plot of this book. Also, of course, Barbie wants to be an actress, so she goes on like an interview and immediately books a job, and the Australian character says g'day and mate at the end and beginning of literally every sentence in the book. It was silly, it was cute, it wasn't as good as I remember, as these books rarely are. today's read is Misery by Stephen King, but it was published originally in 1987. And I know that the movie came out the year that I was born, in 1990. If you don't know, Misery is about an author who gets like kidnapped essentially by his biggest fan. I regularly call this like one of my favorite Stephen Kings, but it's been so long that like who the heck knows. He has basically written a book where Misery is the main character. And in one of his books, he kills off Misery. And now the woman who's kidnapped him is like, you better write me a better book where Misery comes back. Oh, and I'm definitely gonna finish this today because I actually already started it, but I didn't vlog like the first couple chapters because I started doing it and then a readathon happened and now I'm back in it. I am just at this point, which is part 2. I think there's 4 parts overall, and it's called Misery, and it starts with the story that he's writing. And all the N's look weird because the N is broken on the typewriter that Annie Wilkes, his #1 fan, buys for him. And then we'll watch the movie and compare. I think I also want to watch another movie, 2002, 2003, when I was in 7th grade. It's a pretty iconic film year. We had Legally Blonde, we had the Lizzie McGuire movie, Freaky Friday, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Cheaper by the Dozen, Charlie's Angels, Uptown Girls, What a Girl Wants. Oh my god, this is the year Honey came out. Also, SWAT came out this year, which is one of my favorite movies ever. Grind, one of my favorite movies ever. How to Deal, which I'm interested to watch because I haven't heard anybody like ever talk about that movie. And then Get Over It didn't come out this year, but I'm pretty sure this is the year I watched it because I remember who I watched it with. So I'm now on to part 3 and like 2/3 of the way through this book, and I'm really pleasantly surprised. In all of these childhood favorites videos, I always like talk about how this book holds up over time. And I think we all know that Stephen King writes a lot of questionable stuff in general. I've talked about that in other videos, rereading other books by him, and this one I thought would probably be the same. I really thought there would be more that I had to like comment on or that would bother me. I am really impressed by the suspension that he is building in here. All right, I finished Misery and I watched the movie, and I don't have like a final rating or anything. I definitely didn't mind the chapters of the book being in here as much as I thought maybe I would. I definitely enjoyed the tension of it. I enjoyed the writing a lot, and I think it was really strong. With that said, I'm sure there's lots of conversation that we could have and that other people have had about perpetuating a negative idea of mental health. While Annie Wilkes is not officially like diagnosed or anything in the book or the movie, it's clear that she's mentally unwell. On one hand, you know, it doesn't help the conversation about mental illness, and it encourages the idea that people who are mentally ill are murderers. We could go even deeper and talk about how like women are deemed crazy and obsessive fans. We could go further and talk about how fat people are represented in books as consistently being villains. And on the other hand, we could just look at this and say it's a book. It's a book about a woman who makes some really bad decisions and the man who well, I don't want to spoil the book. You know, the man who goes through it. The movie was good. It's well known the movie was good. It was definitely different from the book in certain ways, certain interesting ways, certain violence, and just like the ending, you know, just went a little differently. But I enjoyed both. And now I'm starting my second movie. This is just a self-care day and I'm really happy about it. I actually barely remember anything from Get Over It, so I'm excited to watch it, but I'm pretty sure this is the one that is Shakespeare based, and it has 2 of my biggest life crushes from childhood, Shane West and Mila Kunis. So I deserve this movie. It's also got Kirsten Dunst, who was my everything. We've established Bring It On, the Virgin Suicide's dick, like she was my idol. Oh, also Vitamin C, who's dancing behind him for some reason, was also a style icon for me. I seem to have completely blanked that he has what's supposed to be a British accent, I think. So that's horrifying.
Lucky, right? Are you guys listening to this candy ass? My father's in the foreign service, so I've spent the last few years abroad. Shanghai, Newton, shopping. In fact, when I was in Amsterdam,
the High School Musical vibes are real. The main guy is on the basketball team, and he is just joining a play because he's in love with a girl. And he has to like go back and forth between the two things. And everyone thinks it's so weird that he's in the musical. Weird. So Get Over It was actually kind of good. I mean, there's obviously a reason it's not a well-known like movie nowadays that people remember and rewatch. It's another day. I'm really excited about what I'm going to be reading today. This is Zoe Fools Around. It's the first book in a series written by Catherine Applegate. This has been rebranded a few times. I think this is its original state. I read it when it was rebranded as the Making Out series, and it looked like this. Current day, it's called the Islander series, and it looks like this. I think 7th grade is when we all started caring about how we looked, relationships, makeup, fashion. Every single conversation you had as a group of girls was about boys. That's all we talked about. That's all we related over. And I was just so obsessed with the idea of being a teenager and teenage relationships and all of this inter-friendship drama. So I was so into this series. Not just the series though, like real life celebrity relationships was my favorite thing. Like, let me set the scene. This is the time Justin and Brittany had just broken up. Nick and Jessica had just become a thing. Hilary Duff and Lindsay Lohan were currently fighting over Aaron Carter. Nick Carter and Paris Hilton were just getting together. And I wanted every single magazine to tell me about what was going on. I actually, when I was looking for that picture of my purple room, I found a picture inside my closet. There's actually some books in a picture that this photo was actually, these set of photos were taken a couple years later, but we'll dive into the books in this photo later, in a later video I mean. But at the bottom of my closet you can see a magazine collection. It's aggressive, but like I can't explain to you how important these magazines were to my life. Our fashion icons at this time were Mandy Moore, they were Lindsay Lohan, Hilary Duff. Like Hilary Duff was our everything. This is like right in the middle of the Lizzie McGuire days. So Hilary Duff was in every magazine spread. She had her makeup brand. Melissa Joan Hart, the Olsen twins, Danielle Fishel was a pretty big icon at that time. For me, Tatiana Ali was like one of my fashion icons, but I think sometimes we sleep on Amanda Bynes. Like Amanda Bynes was kind of the blueprint. Peak fashion in 2002 was skinny scarves and one shoulder tops. Like I'm telling you, this was it. This was also the time of frosted white, silver, blue eyeshadow moments. Also for us Canadian girls, like we also had Avril Lavigne. Oh my god, Lily from Radio Free Roscoe was everything. Manny Santos from Degrassi, like iconic, like set the scene for 12-year-old Canadian girl fashion. I hope I can unlock a memory for someone by mentioning Fifi Dobson and Sky Sweetnam. Also Denise from Breaker High. Loved her. In future years, it'll be all about nude lips, like aggressively nude lips. But in 7th grade, the glittery, the frostier, the better. And as far as hair goes, there was lots of clips, there was lots of accessories. The one front braid. This was always pretty iconic. We can thank Sabrina for that. So I'm gonna read this and let you know how it goes. All I remember is all of these covers. I could never find them in like chronological order. There's love triangles, there's drama, it takes place on an island. Okay, I definitely didn't finish this in one day. It's slower moving for me than I thought. I'm only like 50 pages in and I'm gonna try to finish it today, but I also started Flowers in the Attic. If you don't know, Flowers in the Attic is a story of 4 siblings and their father dies and they have to go move in with their like evil grandparents, and they get like locked in a room permanently and they just have to live there. And now I feel like this is putting me in a reading slump because this page literally like is my life right now in like self-isolation. All the days dragged by monotonously. What do you do with time when you had it in super abundance? Where did you put your eyes when you had already seen everything? So she's getting into like what she's not allowed to do. Her grandmother is very concerned that she and her older brother by 2 years are going to commit horrible acts with each other, which is a valid concern. My mom is coming over to my house for the first time since March, and I'm gonna get her to put my hair in the way that she always did it around this age. You haven't touched my hair in like 15 years. My hair's a lot thinner than it used to be too. It is. Yeah. When I make braids now, like they look so normal. Remember I used to have such thick braids?
Yeah, well, remember your father's hair? Well, no, you wouldn't remember your father's hair. But well, when he was... Yeah, that's when we got matching perms.
I don't know why I always wanted curly hair. I feel like I never wore my hair straight in school. Like it was either braids or it was rags.
No. I used to spend so much time doing your hair. And you'd wear it for half an hour and you'd rip it out. Little tiny butterfly clips. I used to like do this intricate thing so that the whole back of your head was these tiny little things with the butterfly clips, and you rip it out after half an hour.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But I would always get you braid my hair. Or rag it.
Yeah, we did rags.
And it would just be poofy.
Yeah. Because you would like brush it.
Oh god! That's a look. Okay, it's a lot later. I need to take these out. There's no way I'm sleeping with these in. And I finished this book. So basically in the book we have a brother and sister, Zoe and Benjamin, and then we have a sister and sister, Claire and Nina. Then we have a brother and brother, Jake and Wade. And then we have some other characters. We've got Lucas, we've got Aisha, and we've got Christopher. Okay, now you know the whole gang. Basically, Zoe is with Jake, but right before Lucas killed Jake's brother, Wade, Zoe and Lucas kissed. So she cheated on her boyfriend. Then Lucas went away for a couple years to like juvenile detention, and now he's back and Zoe is grappling with her feelings. These are some tight girls. Obviously nobody wants to be friends with Lucas or know Lucas or talk to Lucas because he was drunk driving and killed a boy. But Zoe cannot keep her feelings to herself, so she yet again cheats on her boyfriend, who, albeit boring, is like a perfectly fine, nice boyfriend. But then we find out that he wasn't actually the one driving the car. Dun dun dun. It was Claire. Claire is our new villain, and she is like seemingly in love with Jake, who's Zoe's boyfriend, but she's cheating on him, so whatever. But Claire's actually dating Zoe's brother Benjamin, who's blind, and that's pretty much all we get about his character. And then we have Aisha and Christopher, who are the two black characters and the only two black teenagers who live on the island. And Aisha is very adamant about not dating Christopher because she doesn't want to be seen as like a stereotype, because she's expected to date the only black teenager on the island. But Christopher is very persistent, and at one point technically gets employed by the high school that they go to and isn't like her teacher. But I mean, that definitely makes the relationship a little more awkward. So weirdly, while reading the book, I didn't remember any of it. Usually when I reread my childhood favorites, I have like memories of reading the book, or I remember certain scenes, certain sentences. I remembered nothing, and I'm assuming it's just because there were so many books in the series and it all just got lost over time. So the book was fine. I actually really don't see what I saw in it at this age enough to want to pick up the entire series. And also, I could not read these. I struggled. This book took so much longer than it should have because I was like struggling. Suffice to say, I won't be continuing in this series. Although I just got in the mail the next book in the Unicorn Club. I still can't explain to you why I want to read this, but I want to read more about Maria, so it's here. Tomorrow my goal is to finish Flowers in the Attic, even though I'm not having the best time. It's strange how, upon reflection, 2 hefty books about being stuck in a room. I may not have any photos of myself looking like this in 7th grade, but this feels spot on. So shout out to my mom. See you tomorrow. I brushed it out. No one tell my mom. And as we would do this like once a week, and then it would turn into a poodle and I wouldn't know what to do, here are some things that I would do with my poofy hair to try to make it look normal. It never did. But I just realized it's my last day of reading like my childhood. So we're finishing Flowers in the Attic today. I am probably halfway through at this point. I actually checked out the audiobook. This is 400 pages, and you know what? It's not that good. Okay, I just went live for a bit. Everyone was hyping me up for this. I don't think you got the full scope of what was going on, but I appreciate your love. So let's talk about Flowers in the Attic. No. The purpose of rereading my childhood favorites for me are 1, to feel the nostalgia. Number 2 is to just remind myself of the book in general. And 3 is to see if the book holds up. This has become less and less important, I guess, depending on what I'm reading, because like, it's good to reread. It was good to reread Holes because Liam was going to read it and I wanted to know what he was reading. I like to be informed about like current day middle grade. It's cool to be able to see a comparison to what I read at that age versus what is out there in the world now. But since there are so many books out there, I really don't think that many, am I wrong, 12-year-olds are out there now reading that Barbie book and the Unicorn Club and Flowers in the Attic. I don't know that that's a thing. I don't know that it matters, this conversation about does this book hold up and would I recommend it current day. I wouldn't recommend this current day. 1, it's not really that good. It could be interesting if you're thinking about, you know, literature in general and you want the history of certain topics. What I've learned with Flowers in the Attic is I didn't feel the nostalgia because I don't think that I enjoyed this book. When I say it was my favorite, I really do think now, being realistic, I probably just read this because of the controversial element, and it was like a book that people at school were like, oh my god, have you read this? I don't personally find it enjoyable or interesting to read about a rich family and their servants and the terrible ways that they treat each other and speak to each other. Here's the thing, uncomfortable topics or taboo topics or whatever the fuck have their place in literature, but I think more so in a way to like have the conversations about things, not to like root for an incestuous relationship. So the fact that it pitches itself as like about forbidden love, it's setting you up for a romance that you root for. And that's obviously problematic. But I was hoping that like my memories were just wrong. I actually can't look at myself looking like this anymore. So tomorrow I'm gonna check in with you and have like a good wrap up. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, here we are for final thoughts. To be honest, and I think what I've seen from a lot of other people talking about this book, is that a lot of us who read it 20 years ago forgot the rape portions of this and knew that it was about incest and it was about a brother and sister, but I guess blocked out of our memory, on one hand, that the mother was also in an incestuous relationship, and two, that the relationship between the two main characters is not consensual, which, like, obviously you can't consent as a 14-year-old. But two, like, the word rape is used multiple times. She says, he raped me. He says, I'm sorry I raped you. She says, it's my fault. It was inevitable. I could have stopped you if I really wanted, even though she said no multiple times and kicked him. I'm actually going to leave some discussions down below about this book, and like maybe why it had the impact that it did. It's really not well written. The dialogue is some of the cringiest, most unrealistic, ridiculous, terrible dialogue I've ever read. This is also not a young adult book. It's pretty much marketed that way now, which is kind of horrifying. But originally when it came out, like, it was an adult novel. It's about neglect, it's about abuse, it's really dark. I'm gonna spoil the entire book if you don't already know, because I'm sure most of you don't want to read this if you haven't already. But one of the 4 children dies, and he was poisoned. They were all poisoned throughout their entire time in the attic. Their grandmother set out to kill them slowly, and one of them actually dies. And that was definitely a much more emotionally impactful moment as a mother. On one hand, I want to appreciate the children, like, taking charge of their life and their ability to escape at the end of it. I love a survival story. So I'm really struggling with my rating. I don't think I was romanticizing it at 12, but I definitely don't think I was acknowledging the issues within it. I really don't know. As far as Misery goes, this originally had a 4-star, I think, from me on Goodreads, but I think I would stick with my 4-star. As far as these 2 books, I really don't know if I need to, like, sway anybody to them, away from them, but I really did enjoy diving back into Mandy's experience. Not so much this one, but there was nothing wrong with it. I talked about Ariel, which was another strange experience. Like, did I understand the full scope of what was happening? And then I guess we would have to say this was a pretty disappointing reread. But again, in the day and age when I was reading it, like, there wasn't that much competition, so I'm sure this was interesting to me, and it's definitely formed some of my reading preferences. Like, maybe I love a friendship group where everyone is sleeping with or dating each other and it's all messy. Like, maybe this is the reason why I love that trope now. So props to that. But, like, if you were planning on picking up The Islanders at some point, I wouldn't tell you not to, but, like, I don't know if it's gonna do much for you. I guess just depending, like, who you are, how old you are, your reading tastes, your reading history. For me, this would have been a good offshoot of, like, all of the teen shows that were available to me, which were few and far between. It gave me what I was getting from, like, Dawson's Creek. It's not going to give you what you're getting from Outer Banks. Does that make sense? There might be some, like, universal teen experiences covered, but the longevity of this series is not a thing, in my opinion. that's it for reading my childhood favorites. I feel like usually in these vlogs I go do more, but obviously we're in a weird time, so just hanging out with me mostly in my room. Anyway, I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. What do you have to lose? Bye.